Wait, one more time, just like that again. Okay, yeah, and so looking at Neil,
Mm-hmm.
and okay, ready, action.
Okay. First of all, I just want to go back, say, about 5 years or so. Or you can go back further if you want to, but I've spoken to a few people, and the general impression then is the Sheffield music scene as it was suffering a little bit. It wasn't that vibrant. There wasn't a lot going on. So for you personally, like 5 years ago, how did you view the scene?
5 years ago, how I probably viewed the scene, I think it was it felt more disparate. There were various pockets of people doing things, but there seemed to be less connection between different people doing things, and that was one of the things I had in mind when I started doing a project called Mixed in Sheffield, which was to ultimately encourage people to look in their own back garden and work with the talent that's here, and to encourage people to communicate with each other from different scenes. So I think that does overall more disparate, and obviously you've got different phases of different sorts of music. Different music was high on the agenda 5 years ago, for instance. Probably electro was kind of high on the agenda at that time. Things that go through phases of popularity, and where we are at the moment is very different to what was popular back then. Plus bands were a lot more. There seemed to be a lot more musical energy in bands at that time, which once again was kind of different set of. It felt like a different set of people. You've got your live music people, and making some broad brushstrokes here, but it felt like everything was more in its own pocket, and that was I think that was very much how it felt. It feels different to that now. A lot more cross-pollination.
So when did that start to happen then? When did things start to shift from that disparate scene into something like, for me as an outsider in,
yeah,
the history of Warp and everything, Sheffield to me has always appeared a strong scene. So when you speak to people and you hear how it was then, so that's a bit surprising. And now having come to Sheffield, it seems really strong. So when do you think the shift went from it being, as you've just described, leading towards where we are now?
It was kind of I don't know. It was around about that time, really. I think people, I was doing a project called Mixed in Sheffield, and I think it kind of maybe sowed a few seeds of certain kind of ethos. But what I do know is that around that time, more people just seem to get together. There seemed to be a bit of an awakening, and it's certainly an awakening within electronic music, and then I did a few parties, and other people did parties, and before you know it, there was a lot more cross-pollination. It was, don't get me wrong, there's always been, Sheffield's always had stuff going on, going right, way back to Cabaret Voltaire, and the kind of background that was formed in. There's always been loads of stuff going on, but I think over the last, I came, it was like 1990, 91 when I came, and I've seen the landscape change a lot over that time. But the one thing that I feel was, about 5 years ago, was that people were really searching for something else, and it'd be nice to think that in some way that I encouraged a little bit of that by the Mixed in Sheffield project, in which I was getting bands remixed by electronic producers and really kind of shining a light on, like it or not, on what we've got here in Sheffield, and trying to celebrate what we've got going on here. And I know, once again, people have done this sort of thing in the past. I haven't invented anything here, but I just shone a particular light on it in my own way that I saw at that time. And so I think, as best of my knowledge, I think that's about it. About 5 years ago, things started to just change a little bit.
So was there a noticeable shift in like the mood in the city at that point? Because you know when something starts to take off and that you can sort of feel it when you're involved in it. So did you get that feeling at that time? Then there was this shift. You did feel like, hold on a minute, something's happening here.
Maybe it's hard because I was directly involved in it, so hard in one sense and not in another sense, because I was in the middle of doing a project that was all about that, so I felt that running through it all. But I think probably, yeah, because lots of other people started doing things and different crews started working together, and you know, you've got various little pockets now that people, the idea of people putting on nights that has loads of different people playing at it from different crews and different scenes and different forms of music is kind of normal now. It's just it's normal. So sorry, I forgot the question actually now.
It was just like a noticeable shift in the city's mood, yeah.
Noticeable shift in the mood. Was there a noticeable shift in the mood? It's hard to tell, really. I think it can only be borne out by my kind of recollection of events that have happened and from speaking to people. And I think maybe times have changed, and maybe that's something to do with a general shift in people's, you know, nationwide. Maybe it's not just a Sheffield thing. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I think through the fact that kids have been searching for something different, they're digging more themselves. They're digging into loads of different things. Genres had been exhausted, and maybe by that time, by the end of electro, people were really looking for something, a different way to experience music that was not quite so all one thing. And I'm not just painting electro into a corner here, because it was part of a lineage of stuff that happened. Don't know. I find it. I wouldn't like to say, really. I couldn't really answer that.
Okay. How do you feel about the scene now then? Having come through that, where we are now, how is it looking at it?
It's vibrant. Really, I think it's definitely a good time for electronic music. Whereas when 5 years ago or more, it was still more. You had band stuff in it. And there was only certain types of electronic music that were kind of people were going out to see. But maybe it's just changed. It's more like house and techno now is what's in. But it just doesn't seem to be such the same amount of kids going out to bands. Forgotten the question again.
It's all right.
So can you just make sure you don't still reach?
Right. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Just keep facing that way. Yeah.
So I mean, you touched on it a moment ago as well. Do you think there is a strong sense of community within the clubbing scene here?
Strong sense of community within the clubbing scene. Yeah, as much as there can be, and I don't know. I've only got my direct experience of someone putting on events in Sheffield, and I hear I've talked to people about different cities, and you can view it from the outside, and I hear stories about how hard it is in different cities, whatever. Sheffield's a hard place to make things work, but I do, at least people talk to each other in Sheffield, and within the even just promoters generally will try and give each other a space, which is a positive thing. We try and work together. In my experience in working here, people try and work together and not just trample on each other, which is definitely a good thing. I don't know whether it's a unique thing, but it's definitely something that I feel as doing that, as being involved in promoting stuff. And as far as the actual, going out there, people working together, yeah, I think it's pretty good. people do have an open kind of the book's kind of open, really, I think, for working with people now, and that is maybe a change. I didn't notice it being. It's really hard to answer that though, because things change, people change, and the world changes outside. And was it my experience 5 years ago that was that the reality of the world? Was it any different, or is it just that I feel different and I'm different now? Don't actually know the answer to that.
So, thinking about, I mean, you touched on it there then as well. Outside the city, how do you think Sheffield's perceived by those outside before they come here? What do you think they're, if you've booked someone to come and play Sheffield and they've not come here before, what do you think they're expecting? How do you think they see the city?
People's expectation of Sheffield when they come, I think it depends who it is and where they're from. A lot of people haven't been to Sheffield before. Some people know about it, some people that don't. If people have just got a casual glancing knowledge at Sheffield, they might just think, yeah, Human League, Heaven 17, Arctic Monkeys, depending on where they, what scene they're involved in and where their area of interest is. It's depending on how deep they go within stuff. If it's someone more in the techno thing, they might mention Black Dog or someone like that. So it really depends who you're talking to. But it is, even though it's quite a big city, it's still and its impact, really, I think it punches above its weight artistically.
Hold it there,
Even though I believe it punches above its weight artistically for the output of this city, I think it's still not really that big on the radar out there in the big wide world.
So when people have actually come to play, how have they reacted to it? What's their impression when they've actually come and experienced the city?
In my experience, it's always been good. It's certainly when people have come to Hope Works and done events, they've always loved it. And before, different events I was doing before that, but so at the moment at Hope Works, the other DJs that I've had on have had a really good experience of it. People that have never, not been here, people like Ben Clock, really liked it. And so it feels like it was a pleasant surprise for these people. I think one of the great things about this city, for me, is it's a really warm crowd. People give a lot. So for an artist coming to play here, I think they get quite a lot out of it, because people are responsive, they're talkative, they really go for it on the dance floor. And so as a DJ coming here, a consistent thing that I get is a real buzz from them. Like, they really enjoy the gigs. Because I can imagine in some places you go, you play, and it's crowds can be very standoffish, don't want to dance too much, and it's not like that in Sheffield. We really go for it and have a good time and really celebrate. So in my experience, people that have come here have gone back with the feeling of, yeah, that was great, that was, and hopefully they go away thinking, God, I've never been to that place before, but you know what? That's a good little party town, that.
So, with now, and it is a good little party town now. I mean, I've only been here a year, and my experience from where I thought of Sheffield before I got here to moving here changed rapidly. Especially, you've got a lot of different nights now operating in the city. It is vibrant. It is bouncing. Can that only be a good thing for the city?
Yeah, as the idea of there being different nights and a lot of variation on offer, I think that's can only be a strength for any city. For things to be homogenised into one type of thing, or you to only have a couple of places to go on offer, I don't think that's good for a rich and vibrant culture. As far as the nighttime, nighttime economy and social life, places for kids to go out. If you don't have something that's relevant and crosses boundaries and it is nice and vibrant and it contains lots of variation, people will just go somewhere else for it. So whereas when I first started doing stuff, and like 5 years ago and pre that, people would go to Leeds and Manchester a lot, and we still do. But plainly because there was not within house and techno, certainly there wasn't a lot on here to keep people here. But now you've got loads of stuff for people to stay in Sheffield to do, and for people to travel from other cities to come and see. So variations are for me. It's a key thing really, and it's. I think Sheffield's got a lot. It's got its own angle really with that, and it's got plenty to offer. That's idiosyncratic to this place.
So, looking forward then, how do you think things look moving forward? It's come from a darker place as regards going out. It's really healthy now. So do you think that's something that can be maintained and built on going forwards?
Coming from it's definitely come from a different place, and maintaining this this kind of forward momentum that I've seen over the past few years. I think that can be maintained as long as there are places to maintain variation or allowed to exist. Then yeah, and some of those decisions don't rest with people like me. But at the moment, there is still space for variation, which I'm really glad about. So I think it's people will kind of always find a way. Really, I think, and I hope. I can only say I hope things continue, and doors don't get shut. And things are allowed to grow and develop. But some of those decisions don't rest. Some of those the answers to some of those questions don't rest with people like me. So there's what I think and what happens can be two completely different things. I can try my best to put on various events and do interesting things, and so can everybody else. But some of it lies outside your control. I definitely think there's a lot of really hard-working, creative people in the city that are really trying to do good things, put on great events, and do it for really good reasons. And so, as long as the people are here trying, and they're just given the ability to implement their things, their plans and their ideas, so long as they're given that chance, then there's no reason we can't keep growing and changing. It just needs there to be enough rope for people to do that.
So, what would you say, looking at the music scene, if anything, what would you say is lacking at the moment?
What's lacking in the music scene? I don't know really. I just I'm more focused on what's good about it. I think I don't know.
So within that then, would there be any changes you'd make? I mean, you've talked about certain things obviously being out your hands, and as promoters that's obviously the case. You're working within what you've got. So is there anything you'd change to improve it? Is there anything you think, if we did that instead, or if this was available, then we could move forward?
I don't know really. I don't know. I don't know about changes. It's hard to really comment on that. I don't really have an answer for that.
That's all right. And so, just to end on with everyone, so what hopes would you have for the city then? Where it's at now, what hopes would you have for it?
What hopes would I have for the city? I'd hope that the vibrancy that it's shown over the last few years continues to grow. That the smorgasbord of opportunities for enjoying yourself at night continues to grow, and that creative, dynamic people are given the opportunities to realise their dreams and realise their ideas. I'd kind of like to just see more of that, and from where I'm looking, there's lots of creative, intelligent, interesting people at work in the city, and all I'd wish is for them to be able to continue, and for all the creative industries in the city to just carry on blossoming, because there's a lot of good work here, and for people to just be the best that they can be. And I'd wish that on anybody, no matter what city they come from.
Cool.
Right,
Yeah,
that's
nice
great.
one.